All right. Hello, beautiful creators. Rebecca here, your Vibe Mentor, here to bring you another video on how to raise your vibration so you can live your best life. So excited for our connection today. I have a guest with me, Kai Ashley of spiritualsuccessjourney.com. Kai is an expert in reprogramming the subconscious for chronic pain, love, and business. So, welcome, Kai. I am so excited to connect with you and to meet you and have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how we stumbled upon each other. I think it was divinely orchestrated. So I'm really excited to share with my community what you have to offer. We talk a lot about mindset work and how our blocks either in our mind or our body, because the body keeps the score, how that prevents us from getting from where we are to where we want to go, and that oftentimes these blocks can keep us from our life purpose because we are perfectly imperfect for our purpose. We need to start to embrace who we are fully, and sometimes that requires removing those blocks that get in the way. So tell us more about what you do and how you help people.
Yeah, well, my work really centers around the emotional clearing because everyone's heard of cortisol, the stress hormone, but these emotions are really toxic to our system. And growing up, we've been taught to suppress our emotions, to swallow the tears, to toughen up and to just move on and cope. And so many of us, we had to cope and we have, but then we get trauma, which, as you know, goes into anxiety and depression and, like OCD and all these issues. But then it also, when it gets really bad and the issue isn't addressed, it compounds into physical and chronic pain. And I've found that that also closely relates to boundaries, communication, and relationships, and actually moving forward with your purpose. So it's a real trinity with my work. I don't just help people with chronic pain or business or relationships. They all go hand in hand. You can't actually have one without the other with this method. So, yeah, I help my clients really heal all areas of their life that are really important.
Yeah, and you have such a unique set of skills that I've not heard combined together. And we've talked a little bit about EFT on my channel. Certainly, breath work is a massively impactful exercise that I still need to do more videos about. But this is the first time I've heard of anyone combining EFT with somatic work that includes breath as well as, like you said, biofield healing. So, can you tell us more about how you go about doing what you do?
Yeah, well, I just like in a session with the client, I'll just have the client tell me exactly what's happening. And as soon as I find an important part, usually like an emotional charge come up, we'll start working. And we'll feel wherever the pain is in the body, which could also be anxiety or any of the emotions, because emotions show up as pain, but also physical pain. If it's a physical pain, we'll just go right to where the pain is. And then we use a breath work technique that you breathe right down deep into it, and you actually use somatic tracking to go right into where it is. And then you do this big yawning exhale that relaxes your body and you get out of your body's way, and it will just release the trauma on its own. But combined with this, we're also doing the advanced talk therapy method of actually talking to your body, talking to the pain, your inner child, your future self, even your past selves, whatever is relevant at the time. And we're finding out exactly what is causing it, but more importantly, exactly what is needed to heal it. And so as I guide my clients through the process, it's this very intuitive, sort of flowy process that's ends up different for everyone, but it's like a lot of moving to like get the vibration through the body, which will dislodge the trauma, like the anxiety and the pain and all of the stuff holding you back. It'll clear you up. It's like this big, like a fresh energy comes in, and you feel so high vibe by the end. Sometimes you'll feel really tired because I always explain to my clients when they're like, oh gosh, I'm exhausted now, like especially in the early days, it'll be like that their body's like a big bouncy castle that's filled up with all this negative energy. We just sort of like sucked all the energy out. And so now the bouncy castle will fill back up with positive energy while they sleep overnight. And then the biofield healing is just my intention. And my type of aura is like a frequency anchor. So people will calibrate to my frequency. Plus, I also mentally, and it's like, It doesn't sound like imagining doesn't sound like it's a whole big thing, but it is. Imagining is a big thing. I help imagine the healing effects in their body as it happens, and so it helps with the shift. So that's
Yeah.
the short version.
Yes, not enough floors on the elevator for the long
No.
elevator pitch, right? No, and I like that you mention imagination as if we feel like we discount it, right? Like it's not valid, it's not important enough. But really, like I've talked a lot about on my channel, when our brain has to match the image that we feed it, right? And so the chemistry in our body is then matching the image or the imagination that we're using to flood our body with those chemicals, which again, it all is connected. So then those chemicals create the emotion, the emotion creates a vibration, and so we're sending that out. And so your imagination is part of your creative ability, and it's not in any way to be discounted. So I love that you bring light to that because that's
Yeah.
a huge piece of it. And another thing too is oftentimes people will feel like I can learn how to do this for myself, or I can just join this free, Facebook pop-up group and do it myself and not really invest in having someone help you do it. And so having that other energy, that mirror on the other side to help you see, right? Because sometimes we just gloss over the patterns or we
Yeah.
don't recognize the thought habits that we have. And so you one need that mirror to say, wait, there's something there. And then
Mm-hmm.
two, that energy to entrain to. So yes, a lot of work can be done and we do have all that we need within us, but at the same time we are better together. And when we
Yeah.
collaborate and help each other. So do you have any more to add to that? Because I know that's a very common negative belief right now that we have to do things on our own.
Which is actually a trauma response.
Yes, yes, it is.
Yeah.
You're right.
Feel like you have to do it all on your own. And I used to have that, the lone wolf syndrome, where you want to be strong, but no one gets any points for doing it alone. And the most successful people do have help. But when it comes to this work, yeah, we should all have our own home practice. But they're called blocks because they're blocks. You can't see them. There's only so far we can go with our own inner work. Plus, a lot of, as you just said, a lot of the thought patterns that we have that we think are supportive, like, come on, you should do it, get up tomorrow and you'll do it, can often be negative when it's coming from should and a program instead of coming from your heart space, connected to God, the divine, whichever word people like,
Yeah.
being guided with trust and truth. And our trauma really blocks us from being able to hear that inner truth and the guidance that we need. So yeah, I'll just say definitely have your own home practice. I always commend that and recommend it, but there's no better investment than investing in the type of work to heal your trauma and reprogram your consciousness, because your mind is everything. It's the basis of everything that happens to you in life.
Yes. As within, so without. So anything that you have not been able to fix or overcome is probably due to a block. And I love that you say there's no reward, right? You don't get brownie points for doing it alone. In fact, it takes longer and it's harder and more painful because you have to perpetuate the problem for so much longer. And like you said, the best people, the smartest people in the world have help, right? They have mentors,
Yeah.
they have coaches. A coach is always got a coach, right? Because we're always leveling up and we know that that's the best way to move forward more quickly when you're able to distill decades worth of effort and knowledge into days or even a session. So
Yeah.
awesome.
And some of my clients even say how they were shocked that it was like a stretch for them to actually come and invest with me, but that once they just made it a requirement, that the money just kept showing up. And it's like one of my clients, when we started working together, she was certain she was trapped in a job that she went to school for, that she hated, gave her physical pain, anxiety, all the things. And through working together, not only was she able to quit that job, it happened in a flash, actually. It happened, she just all of a sudden quit. She then started her own cleaning business and her own healing business and has been able to support herself all the way. But that wouldn't have happened if she didn't have my help to help reflecting back to her that she was lying to herself about there being no way out. So I think like us as coaches, we just help people see the solution that is always there.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's a belief, right? It's a choice. And I want to be gentle because we say you're lying to yourself. That's the truth of it. it sucks. It sounds really harsh because we've not been taught that you have another option, right? So
Mhm.
you do have that choice, and it is a belief, right? So when we believe, that's again at the thought pattern that's creating everything that reciprocates from that we just mentioned. So you can shift that belief in a second, which is why she's able to quit her job in a second and start to shift into things. And so many times automatic response by default, sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously, the response is, I don't have the money. I
Yeah.
can't, right? Limit, the block is right there. I can't. Boom, you've hit a brick wall and you're going no further. But the minute you shift and say, how can I? You ask the question and you put it out to God in the universe and you say, how can I do this? I know this will help me move forward. And I get God bumps a lot. I'm a feeler. So I'm just covered in goosebumps right now. So
Yeah.
that's your confirmation. Just ask, how can I? And nobody is saying you have to bulldoze through and rack up a bunch of debt and do things that are not aligned with your soul. You just ask the question, how can I? And that answer will come to you. And if that person or that coaching program or whatever is right for you, it will present itself. The opportunity and the way through will present itself. So anytime you've, and I love that you use the word should because I joke a lot about don't should all over yourself. Like should is a red flag. Anytime you find yourself saying that, it's wrong.
Yeah,
Ask-
absolutely.
right? Ask a question instead of making a statement. And that's like leaving an open door versus a brick wall. So,
Yeah, like, what is the right move here? What does feel right for me? What
right,
is possible? Not
right.
like, no, I can't do it. It's like, but if you could.
Right. Yes. If you were to say you could, how would you go about doing it, right? Asking is king, right? As king, ask a question and you will get an answer instead of
Oh, I
saying,
love
I
that.
already have the answer. So, yes. So, how does physical trauma and blocks affect our body, right? The body keeps the score. So, tell us more on your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, our body and our mind is not just connected, like it's almost like the same thing. Like our mind isn't just in our brain, it's all throughout our body. And we'll store these traumatic incidences in our body, and then we'll make decisions from that, like, oh, because this person hurt me when I was 6, at 6 years old, you made a decision, that's it, I'll never speak up again, or that's it, I'm always going to fight back. So one of the decisions, for instance, or it could be any decision. And then this decision creates this pattern on repeat that causes the trauma to just keep getting stored in your body, in your organs, and this creates a weak spot. So when people get an injury and it doesn't just heal relatively quickly and it like stays around for months and years, that's because you had trauma there, which created a weak spot in your body, and then you injured yourself, and now you've got the trauma come up. But then people mistake it. They're like, oh no, but it was from an injury, or it just seems so random, like it couldn't be emotional. Like one of my clients I healed with stomach spasms. Every single day she woke up in excruciating pain. She couldn't even lay down sleeping all day. She couldn't even really leave the house because her stomach was constantly spasm. And you would think that's physical. And she tried doctor after doctor, but eventually, like, she actually came to work with me for business stuff, and while we were talking, she told me about the spasms. And so I started there. And it turned out it was from 4 years before when they started. She'd had them for 4 painful years. It was, not to go too deeply into her personal story, but it was just she made a decision that ended up leaving her feel neglected and alone and scared in a real time of need. And it just got locked in her body. And her body was just reacting to it ever since, like it was happening in that moment. But she never thought of it really. It was only when we went into the pain, then listened and spoke to the pain, that she then discovered it and then used the healing method of the breathwork tapping, and we were able to change her mind, forgive the whole thing. And it's like this complex process, but it's very easy when you're being guided by someone. It's just like, to go back to what we said about having someone helping you, it is very technical. There's a lot of things that, like, you have to give it permission to stay without trying to change it. And that's one of the hardest things a person can do, especially on your own, because you're doing it to change it. But if you're trying to change the trauma, then you're judging this part of you and it will just push back. So you have to actually, the healing comes from letting the pain be there, or the issue or the thing you don't like about yourself, and this is the hardest bit, but it's also the best bit. It comes from loving yourself while you have the issue, not deleting the issue. So that's like what I have to train my clients in when they come to me. It's like, this isn't just to like stop the issue like this. This is to help you see it differently and come at it with the actual energy of love, not like this mental thing, the actual energy of love. When it touches the pain and you're not judging it, trying to change it, it'll just all dissolve and it will just release into your body and then out through, and you'll yawn and you burp and you cough and you cry and you laugh and you just release all this energy and you feel like a million tons lighter. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I love that you bring the heart into it too, because we talk a lot about how the heart magnetic field is 10,000 times greater than the brain, that the heart really should be in charge, not the brain. And we've become so overly focused on, I think, therefore I am. And that's just simply not true. And so the heart's ability to heal, I personally believe that the heart contains all of our magic, that's where we are able to heal all of this is coming from the heart and loving what is. And that's why I love the little phrase I put together, you are perfectly imperfect for your purpose, because those parts of ourselves that we dislike, when I was young, I was very, very sensitive, hypersensitive, and yet very bubbly and happy. And people would say, you're too much, right? You're too sensitive. You're too this, you're too that. And those parts of me, similar to your client story, became something I rejected that I thought were a liability. And so there was a block there. I was almost like bifurcation, right? Like I split into
Yeah.
this part of me is okay and this part is not. And when you find your life purpose, when you bring it all together, you realize, wow, that part of me is necessary and it actually is an asset when I am living in my purpose. All of me is necessary and all of me can be loved and I can be whole and complete for the first time in your entire life. And so we have to heal those traumas to be able to bring that back into integration and the wholeness. So the heart is a critical piece of that. I love too the way you talk about it, the trauma or the emotion as if it is a thing, right? You
Yeah.
want to speak to that a little
Yeah.
bit?
Well, because it's not just this pain in your body. It's like, imagine when, you know how some days you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you're just in a bad mood. Okay, maybe someone cut you off in traffic and then you're in a bad mood. Okay, so this is going somewhere. So the pain you feel in the body is actually a sub personality trapped in time that experienced something that put you in a bad mood. It put you into fear. It put you into shame, pain, not being able to say no to people, not being able to say yes to what you want. All these things, whatever it was, it's trapped in a mood and it's screaming out to you, actually trying to talk to you with very real words. And when you know how to listen, the pain will tell you exactly when it started, why it's hurting, and of course, what it needs to heal. And then as you start not judging it, and one of the things I say in my healings, which my secret sauce is that the whole entire healing is actually leading up to the one sentence, even though, I've got this feeling, I give it permission to stay and I will protect it. So you go from like trying to heal this thing to understanding this is a part of you that's hurt. And that means it's the most sensitive, sweetest part of you that just got so hurt. So you have to invite it into your body, not release it. Invite it into your body, give it like an energetic hug. And while there's other things to it, you also want to give it space. But when you give it the hug, then it feels protected, and then you can talk to it, change its mind, and it will relax, your pain will relax, and it will keep coming back for a while, but you just keep showing up time after time after time after time with that same sort of process and other little things that work with it. And eventually you'll retrain your nervous system that you're safe in your body. And then this sub-personality will integrate. And as you said, you'll find the gifts that are inherent like right within this part of you that you don't like. You'll see that there was always something so special in there. You just needed to actually accept it as it was in that bad mood.
Yeah. Yeah, and it almost sounds like you're saying the same thing but differently, right? That was a part of us that got wounded or rejected or ignored, and it's just looking for your love and your attention, and it wants to be heard and seen. It has a message for you, and it's almost like we've been denying our life purpose or its function in our life purpose. And so it's like that red flag going, hey, I'm here, I need your attention, can you please listen to me? And when we don't listen, it cries louder and louder and louder. in the only language it knows, which is pain, right? Like that is the language of the body. And so we almost have to learn to speak that language or hear and listen.
Yeah.
So do you find a lot of connection with the pain in the body and a rejection of the life purpose or the parts of
Yeah.
us that are intended to serve that life purpose?
Absolutely. The more you say no to that calling you see inside of you, those images that come, some of them might seem too big or unclear and or too scary, or too silly, whatever it is. The more you say no to it, the more you're going to check out into other things like addictions and I don't know, whatever negative thing that your thing is, you'll check out into it instead of showing up for the thing that actually will make you feel better when you do it. So yeah, I find it's completely related. And when you learn how to listen to these parts of you, often they will be telling you, it's okay to trust. You need to trust. You need to say yes. You need to move forward, and it's your body begging you. And just to like touch on that last point, not only do the parts want to be acknowledged, but it's that we were rejected, and then we took over the job of rejecting that part of us because we decided that it was so awful and we blamed ourselves, were so ashamed that we were rejected, hurt, called those names, that we took over the job because that's how we were spoken to. And then we talk to this part of ourselves telling it that it has to change, and then you're just rejecting yourself all over again. So it really is like a process. It's not something you can just do in one day, but you just keep showing up with love and then saying yes to the images that you see inside, taking that one little step. You don't even have to know you can't know all the steps. You just know the next step. You
Right.
take the
The
next
next
step,
right step.
and then the next one will be revealed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. It's amazing how it's all interconnected. And I love that you mentioned addiction as well, because in my work, especially depression and addiction are one of the two biggest issues that people are struggling with. And it could be addiction to, drugs and alcohol, but it could also be shopping or social media or we are so crafty and so intelligent and so skilled at figuring out how to deal with this pain of
Yeah.
living a life we are not meant to live. And it's collectively an issue across the globe. Depression is on the rise, anxiety is on the rise, suicide is on the rise. Obviously, medical pharmaceutical companies are doing quite well. The increase in all of the medications, and all of this is these layers of coping, right? Because we're
Yeah.
stuffing these things down and we don't know. Nobody knows how to get out of it. How do we get out of this corporate job I feel trapped in that makes me unhappy? How do I deal with this marriage that isn't fulfilling or kind or loving or nurturing? How do I what about my kids? What about my bills? What about, right? We've got all of these issues that the world has told us we have to deal with. And you
Yeah.
said it earlier, right? This like bootstrap mentality of like, suck it up, buttercup. There's nothing you can do about it, right? And it's like, the right, you just feel the weight of the world because it's not right. And I talk a lot about on my channel too that when you try something on, if you don't know which way to go and you say, should I stay at this job? Try it on. What does that feel like in your body, right? Sit with it. And then if you say, should I go follow my life's purpose and basically like explode my whole life and figure out how I'm going to feed my kids, the one that seems so crazy will actually feel really good in the body. And
Yeah.
that, right, that depressed feeling is an indication you are not on the right path. And the same can be with thoughts too. And I realize I kind of get a little off track here, but this all leads to living a life that you are built for and that you are made for is going to make you feel alive. It's going to heal you. You're going to feel the positivity and the rightness in your body versus forcing yourself to live a life that isn't right is going to perpetuate the pain, is going to perpetuate the trauma. There is no way around this. Unless you really like your addiction, you like drinking a bottle of wine a night and feeling like crap all the time, which, sometimes we can be addicted to the pain, but there's no way that you can ignore it or deny it. You're going to have these numbing mechanisms to be able to cope with the denial of what your body and soul knows is the right path. And so it will always continue to try to get your attention. And there's just no way to stop it until you start to listen. So
Yeah.
it's, yeah. That's
People
why
are
I'm here. That's why you're here.
Yeah, exactly. Like I find people are constantly trying to change themselves to fit into what they think they should do. And so they're making themselves wrong because they can't get up at the right time, otherwise they're lazy and then they think they're wrong, instead of actually just adjusting to what their body actually wants. Like we're meant to like come out of our head and all the thoughts that say, oh yeah, but don't you have to do this because then you get this and that, and if you don't, this and this. It's like that doesn't know. Your mind does not know, and your mind is not made for making decisions.
Right.
Surprise. We're meant to like be making, as like making decisions from our heart space and feeling, is this a lighter reality that I'm going towards? Does it feel more solid, more clear, or is it heavy and shaky and contracting? Now, we're being taught to follow the heavy, shaky, contracting feeling because ever since we're in school, we're taught that we're wrong, that everyone knows better than us, but nobody knows what's good for you except for you. Like, we can
Yes.
have help and advice, but you're the only one who can ultimately know.
That's right. Yes, and that's another thing that I talk a lot about is only you know what's right for you. No one else. No one else. Zero people have authority over you and your guidance system. And so you have to trust yourself, right? We have to learn to reconnect. And something else you said about reprogramming, right? So when we're taught, like you said, when we're children, that that part of us is bad, and then we start to reject it, and then we take on the rejection from our parents or from our peers, and we start to do that job for them. That actually becomes a program in the brain, right? And so that's why your work is so critically important, is this reprogramming of the subconscious, and how we need to start to think differently. We have to catch these thoughts. And even in my work, right, it all boils down to a belief. At the end of the day, it was a belief that that part of me was wrong. It was a belief that I am broken in that way, and it's a belief that I have to continue to suppress or do the things I should or live this life that doesn't nurture and feed my soul. So it's such amazing work. I'm so excited to be here with you and to help people do this, because it literally is, it's world changing. It's life
Yeah.
changing for so many people that believe that, oh, I have a depressed gene, so I'm always going to be depressed. Or
No, no,
anxiety is right. It's not. And thank God for science that supports we have epigenetics, right? Your
no.
genes can be turned on and off. We have neuroplasticity. Your brain can heal and you can create new neural pathways and reprogram your subconscious at any time. And these
Yeah.
things can happen so quickly with somatic work, especially because you're incorporating all of the different aspects of yourself, right? It's not just body work. It's not just talk medicine. It's not just meditation, right? Like all of these things, the breath work, they all need to come together because we
Yeah.
are whole beings. Everything's interconnected. And so you can't have one without the other. And to be able to get at the root, we have to work with all of these things. So that's why I love your work so much. So is there anything else that you wanted to touch on today? Maybe a little more about the inner child and
Hmm.
speaking to that personality?
Yeah, so it really is about having a presence with yourself. You could use the word patience, but I don't believe in patience because I think that when you're impatient, when you're patient, you're already impatient. So I think you should just come out of patience and come into presence and just be with the painful feeling and don't be hard on yourself if you do check out into some addiction or something. The worst thing you can do, and the addiction isn't actually as much of a problem as it is the guilt that you have about the addiction. It's the guilt in us that drives us to escape from ourselves because we're such nags. We're complaining at ourselves constantly, thinking like, oh, it's so hard, oh, I don't know what to do. But this is you complaining. It's not just you thinking and narrating. And so give yourself some grace because we've all been traumatized. We've all got our own flavor of issue. Even those of us that have been in this for many years, we're still working through stuff. It's just it becomes easier to deal with over time. So, but definitely hands on the body, really helps. Like sink in, literally like wiggle in to your body. Come in, breathe in, pause your thoughts, and the actually a really powerful breath that I find everyone can do is what I call the space of grace, the grace of God, space of grace, and the 0 point field. So the space of grace breath, you can do it within half a breath, but all you have to do is pause your thoughts the second that you inhale. So your hands on your body, pause your thoughts the second you inhale. Hold at the top, float, and at the same time, feel the spaciousness around your body, relaxing your shoulders, feeling the spaciousness, and then sigh, relaxing your belly button. And you just sort of float in it. And then the second time you try it will be even more powerful. Hold at the top, pause those thoughts, feel that space. Pause thoughts and just sigh it out. Now you can get into this point anytime, especially with practice, especially when you get very good at pausing those thoughts. And this is the most potent form of creation. So you don't need to be super positive all the time at all. Don't be worried, if you worry, because that's just more worry. Just let yourself sometimes drop it with that breath, come into presence, and you'll feel safe in your body. The only other thing that I really want to touch on is, remember, your thoughts are instructions. So if you want to change things and you want to be confident and strong, you have to be willing to take the leap and start saying, I'm beginning to be confident. I'm choosing to be confident. I'm open to believing in myself. Maybe I actually can do it. And so use these bridging beliefs to get yourself there so it feels true. But you can't expect change if you just keep thinking the same thoughts about how you're not good enough and da 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 da. You have to start actually hearing the thoughts in your head that say, maybe I am good enough, until eventually it'll be like, you know what? Yeah, I am good enough.
Yeah.
And you'll know that because when you say it, you feel more expansive. But when you say things like, oh, I'm not good enough, I can't do it, you feel your body shrink. But when you say, oh, maybe I can do it, maybe it is possible, what would be the way? You can feel it. You feel this expansion,
Yeah.
and that's your guidance system.
Yes, absolutely. No, and I love that you mentioned too, like it's not all positive thinking. Like so much of what came out of The Secret and that belief around manifestation, if I just think positive, I'll be able to manifest it. And it's your body knows. Your body's smart enough to know you
Yeah,
don't believe that. Those are just words, right? So it's not
yeah,
going to truly mimic in the way that it would if it was a true belief. And I love that you use the word or the term bridge, because I do too. Is you need that bridge thought, that bridge manifestation, right? Instead of jumping from complete poverty to the $1 million mansion, we've got to start in the middle, right? Or
yeah,
start at the beginning and work our way there through bridge beliefs and bridge
yeah,
manifestations. And if you say there are no weeds, there are no weeds, there are no weeds, you're not. That's Tony Robbins, right? You're not doing anything about the weeds. They're still there. So we have to feel it to heal it, right? So
yeah,
if there is a temporary moment where we have to allow ourselves to acknowledge this is the thought pattern that I'm dealing with, or this is the pain that I'm dealing with, and spend the time talking to it and getting to know it, being present with it. Like you said, be present, be with the body instead of trying to detach and escape and get away from the pain. And I just as I say this, the thought comes to me that we probably believe that we can't get away from the pain, which is why we've been taught to run from it. Is because it's there's no way to fix it. So we may as well just try to numb it and try to escape it instead of
yeah,
feeling through it, right? Because we have these beliefs that we have to stay in a unhealthy relationship or an unhealthy job, or we can't pursue our life purpose.
yeah,
And so that sends the message of I can't ever get out of this. I'm always going to feel that pain, therefore I'm just going to numb out or try to escape from it. And addiction, I have done a couple of videos, especially on alcohol addiction. It was my vice for a while. It's some of the best people, some of the kindest hearted people feel that pain so deeply that they
yeah,
have to numb out. And so there's nothing wrong with someone who has an addiction. All that means is you've got a louder voice asking for your attention and asking for your love, and the best way out of it is to love yourself. So to be present. I love everything that you we're
yeah,
completely on the same page. So you
yeah. This has been
hit the nail on
amazing.
the head. Beautiful. Well, I have really, really, really enjoyed my time with you. I probably would love to speak again. I'm sure our audience will have lots of great feedback. So thank you so much for spending the time with us. And I will link below. You can find Kai at spiritualsuccessjourney.com. Otherwise, I believe you're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. So we'll have all the links in the description below. So
Great.
thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much
much.
for having me, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you, Kai. It was such a great time. Thank you. Take care. Namaste.